The United Earth Federation had always prided itself on its ability to adapt, survive, and thrive. Humanity's rapid technological advancements over the past century were nothing short of miraculous. But now, as they stood on the brink of their first formal diplomatic meeting with an alien empire, many wondered if humanity was truly ready for this moment. Elias Kane adjusted his suit one last time before stepping onto the sleek shuttle that would take him to the Zari flagship. He wasn't nervous. Elias never got nervous. But he knew what was at stake. If these negotiations failed, it could mean war. And not just any war. A galactic conflict that humanity might not survive. The Zari Dominion was ancient, powerful, and feared across the stars. Their technology surpassed anything humans had developed, and their military prowess was unmatched. Yet, despite their dominance, the Zari rarely interacted with other species unless absolutely necessary. This meeting was unprecedented, a chance for humanity to prove itself worthy of respect, or risk being crushed underfoot. As the shuttle docked with the massive Zari vessel, Elias took a deep breath. The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor bathed in soft blue light. Two towering Zari guards flanked the entrance, their elongated bodies covered in shimmering silver armor. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning him with cold precision. Elias didn't flinch. Instead, he offered them a small smile, which only seemed to confuse them further. He was escorted into a grand chamber where Princess Zari awaited. She sat atop a raised platform, her presence commanding yet distant. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, and her sharp features exuded authority. Around her neck hung intricate jewelry made of crystalline materials, symbols of her royal lineage. Behind her stood advisors and warriors, all watching him with varying degrees of suspicion. Elias stepped forward confidently, ignoring the protocol that demanded he kneel. Instead, he met Zari's piercing gaze directly. "Your Highness," he began, his voice calm but firm, "it's an honor to meet you." A murmur rippled through the room. No human, or anyone else, for that matter, had ever dared address the princess so casually. Zari tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. "You do not bow?" she asked, her tone cool and measured. "No, Your Highness," Elias replied without hesitation. "I believe actions speak louder than gestures. I'm here to build trust, not perform rituals." Zari's lips twitched almost imperceptibly, though whether it was amusement or irritation, Elias couldn't tell. Bold words for someone representing such a young and inexperienced species, she said. "Tell me, Diplomat Kane, why should we waste our time negotiating with humans?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because, Your Highness, humanity may be young, but we're resilient. We've faced challenges far greater than ourselves and come out stronger every time. More importantly, we understand the value of cooperation. War benefits no one, not even the mighty Zari Dominion." His words hung in the air, daring her to respond. For a moment, there was silence. Then Zari leaned back in her seat, her expression unreadable. "Interesting," she murmured. "Perhaps you are not entirely foolish after all." Despite her icy demeanor, Elias sensed a flicker of interest beneath her stoic exterior. It was a start. Over the next hour, they discussed preliminary terms for negotiation. Elias listened carefully, analyzing each point while subtly steering the conversation toward mutual benefits. When one of Zari's advisors suggested imposing harsh trade restrictions on Earth, Elias countered with a logical argument about how collaboration could lead to shared prosperity. His confidence unnerved some of the Zari officials, who weren't used to dealing with such outspoken individuals. By the end of the session, Zari dismissed everyone except Elias. "You intrigue me, Diplomat Kane," she admitted, rising from her throne. "Most beings tremble in my presence, yet you act as though we are equals." "We are equals, Your Highness," Elias said simply. "Different paths brought us here, but our goals are the same. Survival, progress, and peace." Zari regarded him silently for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. Very well. Let us see how far your boldness takes you. But know this, if you cross me, I will not hesitate to destroy you. I wouldn't expect anything less, Elias replied with a wry grin. As he left the chamber, Elias felt a spark of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, perhaps impossible, but he planted a seed. Whether it would grow into something meaningful remained to be seen. One thing was certain, though. Princess Zari would never forget the fearless human diplomat who dared to challenge her world. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change everything. The days following the initial meeting were tense. Elias Kane found himself navigating a labyrinth of intrigue aboard the Zari flagship, Erinder's Blade. The ship was vast, its corridors lined with glowing panels that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Every step he took seemed to echo louder than the last, as if the very walls were watching him. And perhaps they were. Zari technology was advanced beyond human comprehension, and Elias had no doubt that his every move was being monitored. Despite the constant surveillance, Elias refused to let paranoia dictate his actions. He spent his time studying the Zari court, observing their rituals, hierarchies, and unspoken rules. What he discovered both fascinated and troubled him. The Zari operated on a system of rigid traditions, where power was maintained through fear and obedience. Questioning authority was unheard of, and dissent was swiftly crushed. It was a stark contrast to humanity's chaotic but democratic approach to governance. Elias knew he couldn't play by their rules. Not entirely. If he wanted to succeed, he would have to challenge the status quo, even if it meant ruffling some feathers along the way. One such opportunity arose during a council session focused on revising interstellar trade agreements. High Commander Shintar, a towering figure clad in ornate black armor, proposed imposing heavy tariffs on human goods, claiming it would protect Zari interests. His words carried weight. Many of the other council members nodded in agreement, clearly intimidated by his reputation as a ruthless enforcer of the Dominion's will. But Elias wasn't about to back down. Rising from his seat, he addressed the council calmly yet firmly. High Commander, he began, your proposal assumes that humanity poses a threat to your economy. Yet, our species brings innovation and resources that could benefit us all. Why focus on barriers when we should be building bridges? Shintar's glowing eyes narrowed. Your optimism is misplaced. Human, your kind lacks discipline. Allowing you unchecked access to our markets would only invite chaos. Or progress, Elias countered smoothly. History has shown that cooperation leads to growth. Fear breeds stagnation. Which path do you wish to choose? The room fell silent. No one dared to speak out against Shintar, let alone a human. But Elias stood tall, unfazed by the hostile stares directed his way. After a long pause, Princess Zari intervened. Enough, she said sharply. Diplomat Kane raises valid points. We will deliberate further before making a decision. Though her tone was neutral, Elias caught a flicker of approval in her gaze. It was subtle, but enough to fuel his determination. As negotiations continued, Elias began to notice cracks in the Zari facade. Beneath their polished exteriors, many council members harbored doubts about their empire's direction. Some whispered quietly about outdated policies stifling innovation, while others expressed frustration over the growing divide between the ruling elite and ordinary citizens. These murmurs gave Elias hope. Perhaps not everyone was content to follow blindly. His efforts to win allies, however, did not go unnoticed. One evening, as he returned to his quarters, 2 Zari guards blocked his path. They escorted him, not forcefully, but firmly, to a private chamber where Shintar awaited. The High Commander's presence filled the room, his towering frame casting a shadow over Elias. You tread dangerous ground, human, Shintar growled. Your insolence disrupts centuries of order. Do you think challenging our ways will earn you respect? You are nothing more than an insect buzzing around a flame. Elias met his glare without flinching. If I'm an insect, then why do you feel threatened? Surely someone as powerful as you wouldn't waste time on something so insignificant. For a moment, Shintar looked taken aback. Then his expression hardened. "Mark my words, Diplomat. Continue this reckless behavior, and you will regret it." "I'll take my chances," Elias replied coolly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." He turned and walked away, leaving Shintar fuming behind him. Though outwardly composed, Elias knew the encounter was a warning. Pushing too hard could provoke retaliation, but backing down wasn't an option either. He needed to find a balance, a way to push for change without alienating potential supporters. Meanwhile, Zari watched Elias closely. She admired his boldness, though she struggled to understand it. In her world, survival depended on caution and calculation. Risking oneself for ideals was seen as foolish, even suicidal. Yet Elias seemed genuinely convinced that his vision of unity could succeed. Was he truly fearless, or simply naive? Her curiosity deepened during a private dinner arranged under the guise of diplomacy. Seated across from her, Elias spoke openly about Earth's history, sharing stories of humanity's greatest triumphs and failures. He described how humans had once waged wars over land, resources, and ideology, but also how they had learned to cooperate, to build societies based on mutual understanding. "It's not easy," Elias admitted. "We still make mistakes, often terrible ones, but we keep trying. That's what makes us strong." Zari listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she asked, "Do you believe the same can happen here? Can my people change after millennia of tradition?" "I believe anyone can change if they want to badly enough," Elias said. "But it takes courage, not just yours. It takes courage from everyone." Zari didn't respond immediately. For the first time in years, she felt uncertain. Could the Zari Dominion evolve, or was it destined to remain trapped in its own rigidity? As much as she valued stability, she couldn't ignore the doubts creeping into her mind. By the end of the week, tensions aboard the flagship reached a boiling point. Rumors spread of sabotage within the council. A classified document detailing Zari military secrets had been leaked. Suspicion naturally fell on Elias, given his outspoken criticism of the Dominion's policies. Shintar demanded his arrest, accusing him of espionage. Faced with hostility from all sides, Elias remained calm. "If you believe I'm guilty, prove it," he challenged. "But know this, attacking me won't solve your problems. The real issue lies within your own ranks." His defiance shocked even Zari, who had expected him to defend himself more diplomatically. Instead, he chose to confront the accusations head-on, refusing to cower. It was reckless, but undeniably brave. In that moment, Zari realized something important. Elias Kane wasn't just fighting for humanity's future. He was fighting for hers too. And maybe, just maybe, that made him worth believing in. The accusations against Elias Kane weighed heavily on the atmosphere aboard the Zari flagship. High Commander Shintar's voice boomed through the council chambers, demanding swift justice for what he claimed was an act of betrayal. "This human has infiltrated our systems, stolen classified information, and jeopardized the security of the Dominion," he declared, his glowing eyes fixed menacingly on Elias. Elias stood tall, flanked by two Zari guards who watched him with cold detachment. Despite the gravity of the situation, he remained calm, his posture relaxed yet resolute. He had faced worse odds before, though perhaps not quite as literally life-threatening, and he wasn't about to let fear dictate his response. "Prove it," Elias said simply, his tone unwavering. "You accuse me of theft, but where's your evidence? All I've done is speak my mind and advocate for peace. If that's a crime here, then maybe your empire has bigger problems than me." His words sparked murmurs among the gathered council members. Some looked uneasy, while others glared at him with outright hostility. Princess Zari sat silently on her throne, observing the scene with a carefully neutral expression. She hadn't spoken since the accusations were made, leaving many to wonder where her loyalties lay. Shintar stepped closer, towering over Elias like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Your insolence will not save you this time, human. The data was found in your quarters, an undeniable link to your treachery. Elias raised an eyebrow. Convenient timing, don't you think? Someone planted that data there. Why would I steal secrets when I'm already surrounded by your people? It makes no sense. Though his logic was sound, it didn't sway the majority. In the rigid hierarchy of the Zari Dominion, questioning authority was seen as an act of rebellion. Most council members sided with Scifi, eager to see Elias punished swiftly. But tradition demanded due process, and so the matter was resolved in the only way acceptable under Zari law, a trial of honor. When the announcement came, Elias didn't hesitate. I accept, he said firmly, meeting Viray's gaze. If this is how you prove innocence, then bring it on. The room erupted into whispers. A trial of honor was a brutal combat ritual reserved for resolving disputes among the Zari elite. Participants fought until one yielded or fell unconscious, or worse. For a human to participate was unheard of, especially against someone as formidable as Scifi himself, who volunteered to serve as Elias's opponent. Viray finally spoke, her voice cutting through the chaos. Are you certain, Diplomat Kane? This is not a game. You face death. I'm aware of the risks, Elias replied without hesitation. But running away won't solve anything. Let's settle this honorably. Viray studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. So be it. The trial will commence at dawn. That night, Elias prepared as best he could. Physically, he was no match for Scifi, whose strength and speed far surpassed those of any human. But Elias had other advantages: quick thinking, adaptability, and sheer determination. He spent hours reviewing holoscreens displaying footage of past trials of honor, analyzing strategies and identifying patterns. Though the Zari warriors relied on brute force, they often underestimated their opponents, a mistake Elias intended to exploit. As dawn approached, Viray visited him unexpectedly. She entered his quarters without ceremony, her shimmering form casting soft light across the room. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, she said, her tone tinged with both admiration and frustration. Maybe a bit of both, Elias admitted with a small smile. But I didn't come here to back down, Your Highness. If I lose tomorrow, at least I'll have gone down fighting. Viray hesitated, then asked quietly, Why do you care so much? About us, about the Dominion, about me. Elias met her gaze steadily. Because I believe we can do better. Both our species have flaws, but together, we can overcome them. Change starts with trust, and right now, I'm trying to earn yours. For a moment, Viray seemed shaken, then she straightened, her regal demeanor returning. Survive this trial, human. Prove me wrong. The arena was a massive circular chamber bathed in dim red light, its walls lined with spectators eager to witness the spectacle. At its center stood Elias and Scifi, separated by several meters of smooth metallic flooring. The High Commander wore ceremonial armor adorned with sharp edges, his weapons gleaming ominously. Elias, dressed in simple training gear provided by the Zari, looked painfully outmatched. A gong signaled the start of the trial. Scifi charged immediately, moving with terrifying speed. Elias barely managed to sidestep the first strike, feeling the rush of air as the High Commander's blade sliced through empty space. He countered with a calculated kick aimed at Scifi's midsection, forcing the larger warrior to stumble slightly. The crowd roared, caught between disbelief and excitement. No one had expected Elias to last even a few seconds, let alone land a blow. Encouraged by the reaction, Elias pressed his advantage, using agility and unpredictability to stay just out of reach. Each time Scifi swung, Elias ducked, rolled, or dodged, conserving his energy while waiting for the perfect opportunity. It came during a particularly aggressive assault. Scifi lunged forward, overextending himself in his eagerness to finish the fight. Elias seized the moment, driving his elbow into the exposed joint of Shintar's armor. The impact reverberated through the chamber, drawing gasps from the audience. Shintar staggered but recovered quickly, his anger intensifying. Despite his efforts, Elias couldn't avoid every attack. A glancing blow sent him sprawling to the ground, pain shooting through his side. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow, but he forced himself to rise, gritting his teeth. The trial wasn't over yet. Shintar advanced slowly this time, savoring the prospect of victory. "You were brave, human," he sneered. "But bravery alone won't save you." Elias grinned despite the ache in his body. "Guess we'll find out." With a sudden burst of speed, Elias closed the distance between them, feinting left before delivering a powerful strike to Shintar's knee. The High Commander faltered, giving Elias just enough time to disarm him. Breathing heavily, Elias held the blade steady, its tip inches from Shintar's throat. "I yield," Shintar growled, his voice laced with venom. The crowd erupted into cheers, stunned by the outcome. Elias lowered the weapon, his chest heaving as exhaustion set in. Turning toward Virey, he offered a respectful bow. "Still alive, Your Highness." Virey descended from her seat, her expression inscrutable. For a moment, she simply stared at him, as if seeing him for the first time. Then, to everyone's surprise, she extended her hand. "Well fought, Diplomat Kane." Elias accepted the gesture, a flicker of triumph lighting up his weary face. The trial may have ended, but the real battle was only beginning. The aftermath of the trial of honor rippled through the Zari dominion like a shockwave. Never before had a human, or any outsider, emerged victorious in such a sacred ritual. For many, Elias Kane's triumph was unsettling, a challenge to centuries of tradition and order. To others, it sparked a flicker of curiosity, forcing them to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. Elias himself felt the weight of his actions. Though physically battered from the trial, he couldn't afford to rest. The victory had bought him time, but it hadn't resolved the deeper issues plaguing negotiations. Tensions between humans and Zari remained high, fueled by mistrust and cultural differences. If anything, the trial had made things more complicated, drawing sharper lines between those who supported cooperation and those who sought conflict. Princess Virey found herself at the center of this divide. Her endorsement of Elias during the trial had been subtle yet significant, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed. Some viewed it as a sign of weakness, while others interpreted it as a bold move toward reform. Regardless of interpretation, one thing was clear: her decision had shifted the dynamics of power within the Dominion. In private, Virey reflected on the events. She admired Elias's courage and resourcefulness, traits rarely seen among her own people. Yet she struggled with the implications of aligning herself too closely with him. Tradition dictated caution, but her instincts told her something greater was at stake. Could Elias truly be the catalyst for change? Or was he simply an anomaly, destined to fade once the spotlight dimmed? Their interactions became more frequent after the trial. Virey invited Elias to join her in discussions about governance, strategy, and philosophy. These sessions weren't formal meetings. They were intimate exchanges designed to foster mutual understanding. They debated everything from the ethics of warfare to the importance of empathy and leadership. "You humans value emotion too much," Virey remarked during one such conversation. "It clouds your judgment, leads you to make reckless decisions. And you Zari value logic too much," Elias countered. "But without emotion, how do you connect with others? How do you inspire loyalty or build trust?" Virey paused, considering his words. "We rely on discipline and duty. Emotion is inefficient." "Maybe," Elias said with a wry smile. "But efficiency doesn't always lead to happiness. Sometimes taking risks pays off in ways you can't predict." Their debates often ended inconclusively, but each exchange left both parties thinking differently. Slowly, Vire began to see the merit in Elias's arguments. His perspective challenged her deeply ingrained beliefs, forcing her to question whether the Dominion's rigid structure was truly serving its people or stifling them. As their bond grew stronger, so did the opposition against them. High Commander Shintar, humiliated by his defeat, became a vocal critic of Elias's presence aboard the flagship. He rallied conservative factions within the council, framing the human diplomat's influence as a threat to Zari sovereignty. He seeks to undermine our traditions. Shintar declared during a heated session, "If we allow this alliance to continue, we risk losing everything that defines us." His words resonated with many, sparking protests among the crew and even whispers of rebellion. Some called for Elias's immediate expulsion, while others demanded stricter measures to limit human involvement in Zari affairs. The pressure mounted, threatening to derail negotiations entirely. Faced with growing unrest, Elias decided to address the situation directly. During a public assembly, he stood before a crowd of skeptical Zari and spoke candidly. "I understand your fears," he began. His voice steadied despite the hostile stares. "Change is difficult, especially when it challenges what you've always known. But clinging to the past won't protect you from the future. Humanity has faced similar struggles. We've learned that progress requires compromise, not conflict." He turned to Vire, who watched him intently from the platform above. "Your Highness, I ask you to consider this. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? One of division and stagnation, or one of unity and growth?" The room fell silent. No one dared interrupt as Vire rose from her seat, her presence commanding absolute attention. "Enough," she said firmly. "Doubt and fear have ruled us for too long. It is time to embrace new possibilities, even if they come from unexpected sources." Her declaration sent shockwaves through the assembly. Supporters cheered, while detractors seethed with anger. Shintar glared at Elias, his hatred evident. But for the first time, Vire seemed unshaken by dissent, whether it was Elias's words or her own convictions driving her decision. She had chosen a path forward, and Elias stood beside her. Despite the breakthrough, danger loomed. Political tensions escalated, leading to covert attempts to sabotage the budding alliance. Anonymous threats appeared in Elias's quarters, warning him to abandon his mission. Spies infiltrated Earth's diplomatic channels, spreading misinformation meant to discredit him. Even some of Vire's closest advisors urged her to distance herself from the human diplomat, fearing retaliation from extremist factions. Yet neither Elias nor Vire backed down. Together, they worked tirelessly to strengthen ties between their peoples, drafting proposals for joint research initiatives, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges. Each step forward was met with resistance, but they persevered, driven by a shared vision of coexistence. One evening, as they reviewed plans in Vire's private chambers, Elias broke the silence. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked quietly. "Pushing for all this change, it's risky." Vire looked up from the documents, her glowing eyes softening. "I don't know if it's the right thing," she admitted, "but I believe it's worth trying. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself." Elias smiled faintly. "That's all any of us can hope for." As they continued working late into the night, the bond between them deepened, not just as allies, but as friends united by a common purpose. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but together, they faced it head-on, determined to forge a brighter future for both their species. Just as progress seemed within reach, a shadow loomed over the fragile alliance between humans and Zari. Rumors of unrest had been circulating for days, whispers of rogue factions preparing to strike. Elias Kane and Princess Vire dismissed them at first as mere distractions, focusing instead on finalizing their proposals for cooperation. But those whispers soon turned into a deafening roar. The attack came without warning. It was late in the cycle aboard Arinder's Blade, with most of the crew either resting or engaged in routine duties. Suddenly, Alarms blared through the corridors, red lights flashing urgently. A fleet of sleek, black ships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the flagship. These vessels bore no insignia, but their design was unmistakable. They belonged to the calth, an extremist faction of exiled Zari who sought to reclaim their lost glory through chaos and destruction. Battle stations. Zari commanded sharply, her voice cutting through the confusion. She moved with precision, issuing orders to her officers while simultaneously accessing tactical data streaming across holographic displays. The calth were formidable opponents, their advanced weaponry stolen during their exile and modified to deadly effect. They aimed not just to destroy, but to destabilize, to ignite a full-scale war between humanity and the Zari Dominion. Elias stood beside Zari on the command deck, his heart pounding. He wasn't trained for combat, yet he refused to retreat. "What's the plan?" he asked, keeping his tone steady despite the tension in the air. "We hold our ground," Zari replied grimly. "If they breach the hull, we're finished." The battle began almost immediately. Energy blasts rocked the ship, sending shockwaves rippling through its structure. Crew members scrambled to man defensive turrets, while engineers worked frantically to reinforce weakened sections of the hull. Despite their efforts, the calth pressed forward relentlessly, deploying boarding parties that infiltrated critical areas of the vessel. Amidst the chaos, Elias found himself separated from Zari. As he navigated the dimly lit corridors, he encountered pockets of resistance, Zari soldiers fighting desperately to repel the invaders. Though inexperienced in combat, Elias relied on quick thinking and resourcefulness. Using improvised tools and exploiting blind spots, he managed to disable several calth warriors, buying precious time for reinforcements to arrive. Zari joined him moments later, her movements graceful yet deliberate. She carried herself with the same regal bearing she always did, but there was a softness in her expression that Elias hadn't seen before. "You're thinking about what comes next," she said, more statement than question. "Of course," Elias replied, turning to face her. "We stopped the calth, but this isn't over. They'll come back, and when they do, we need to be ready. More importantly, we need to show everyone, your people, mine, and anyone else watching, that cooperation works." Zari nodded slowly. "I've been thinking the same thing. But proposing such an alliance, it won't be easy. Many within the Council see collaboration with humans as a betrayal of our traditions. And many humans will resist too," Elias admitted. "Fear of the unknown is powerful, but if we can convince them, show them the benefits, it might just work." The proposal took shape over the following days. Elias and Zari worked tirelessly, drafting plans for a joint task force designed to protect shared interests while fostering mutual understanding. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. Combine human innovation with Zari discipline to create a unified front against external threats. Resources would be pooled, knowledge exchanged, and cultural barriers dismantled through education and dialogue. But convincing others wasn't going to be straightforward. When they presented the proposal to the Zari Council, resistance came swiftly and fiercely. High Commander Scifi led the opposition, his voice dripping with disdain. "This so-called alliance is nothing more than surrender," he spat. "Allowing humans into our ranks weakens us. We don't need their help. We are the Dominion." His words ignited murmurs of agreement among conservative factions. Some argued that humanity's inclusion would dilute Zari's superiority, while others feared losing control over their own destiny. The debate grew heated, with tempers flaring and accusations flying across the chamber. Elias stepped forward, his calm demeanor cutting through the chaos. "Commander Scifi, I understand your concerns," he began, his tone measured but firm. "But clinging to pride won't keep us safe. Look at what happened with the calth. If we'd acted alone, we'd have lost everything. Together, we won. Imagine what we could achieve if we embraced that partnership instead of resisting it." Scifi sneered. Your words mean nothing, human. You seek only to exploit us. Before Elias could respond, Virae rose from her seat, her voice ringing out like a blade. Enough, she commanded, silencing the room. All eyes turned to her as she addressed the council. For centuries, we have relied on strength and tradition to guide us. Yet here we stand, facing enemies we cannot defeat alone. Diplomat Kane offers us not weakness, but opportunity, an opportunity to evolve, to grow stronger together than apart. Her declaration stunned the assembly. Never before had Virae openly challenged the status quo so boldly. Her advisors whispered urgently, urging caution, but she ignored them. Instead, she locked gazes with Shintar, daring him to defy her. Do you believe our ancestors built this empire to stagnate, or did they intend for us to adapt, to thrive? The High Commander clenched his fists, his glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment, it seemed as though he might lash out. But then he bowed stiffly, conceding defeat. Whether driven by loyalty or fear, he chose not to push further. The rest of the council followed suit, albeit reluctantly. With the council's tentative approval secured, Elias and Virae turned their attention to Earth. Convincing the United Earth Federation proved equally challenging. While some leaders welcomed the idea of closer ties with the Zari, others viewed it as a threat to humanity's autonomy. Debates raged in diplomatic chambers, with critics arguing that reliance on alien technology and military support would make Earth vulnerable. Elias addressed these concerns head-on during a global broadcast. Standing alongside Virae, he spoke plainly to billions of viewers. This isn't about domination. It's about survival, he said. The galaxy is vast, and its dangers are greater than any single species can handle alone. By working together, we ensure a brighter future for all. Images of the recent battle flashed on screens worldwide. Zari warriors fighting shoulder to shoulder with human soldiers, engineers repairing damaged systems side by side, medics tending to wounded crew members regardless of species. These visuals struck a chord, shifting public opinion toward cautious optimism. When the vote finally came, the proposal passed narrowly, but it passed. Humanity and the Zari Dominion officially formed the Galactic Accord, pledging mutual defense and cooperation in all matters of interstellar significance. The signing ceremony marked a historic milestone. Representatives from both sides gathered aboard Arinder's blade, exchanging vows of friendship and solidarity. As Elias and Virae signed the accord together, applause erupted throughout the ship. It was a moment neither would forget, a testament to courage, perseverance, and belief in something greater than themselves. Yet even amidst celebration, shadows lingered. Shintar watched silently from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. The calth remained at large, their ultimate goals unclear, and tensions between traditionalists and reformists continued to simmer beneath the surface. But for now, hope burned brightly. Elias and Virae had proven that even the most entrenched divisions could be bridged with enough determination. The road ahead would be difficult, but together, they had taken the first step toward a new era, one defined not by fear, but by unity. As the ceremony concluded, Virae turned to Elias, her shimmering form reflecting the soft glow of nearby stars. "It begins now," she said softly. "Yes," Elias replied, a faint smile playing on his lips. "And whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The Galactic Accord marked the beginning of a new chapter in interstellar history. Over the months that followed, humanity and the Zari Dominion worked tirelessly to implement their shared vision. Joint task forces patrolled contested regions, ensuring stability and deterring rogue factions like the calth. Research teams collaborated on groundbreaking projects, combining human ingenuity with Zari precision to develop technologies that benefited both species. Trade routes flourished, fostering economic growth and cultural exchange. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy seemed poised for peace. But beneath the surface, challenges remained. Not everyone welcomed the changes brought by the Accord. Conservative elements within the Zari Dominion continued to resist integration, viewing cooperation with humans as a betrayal of their heritage. On Earth, some politicians and citizens feared losing their independence to an alien power they barely understood. Tensions simmered, threatening to undermine the fragile unity Elias Kane and Princess Virae had fought so hard to build. Despite these obstacles, progress was undeniable. The combined efforts of humans and Zari led to discoveries that neither species could have achieved alone. Together, they mapped uncharted star systems, explored ancient ruins left behind by long-extinct civilizations, and even developed solutions to environmental crises plaguing colonized worlds. These achievements served as proof that collaboration wasn't just possible, it was transformative. For Elias, the journey had been life-changing. Once an outsider among the Zari elite, he now stood as a symbol of hope and resilience. His fearless advocacy for unity had earned him respect across both species, though it came at great personal cost. Long hours spent negotiating treaties and mediating disputes left little time for rest. Yet Elias never wavered, driven by the belief that his sacrifices would pave the way for a brighter future. Virae, too, underwent profound change. As leader of the Zari Dominion, she faced immense pressure to uphold tradition while embracing reform. Her decision to endorse the accord had sparked outrage among conservative factions, leading to assassination attempts and calls for her removal from power. But through it all, she remained steadfast, guided by the conviction that evolution, not stagnation, was the key to survival. Her bond with Elias deepened over time, transforming from cautious alliance into genuine friendship, and perhaps something more. One evening, aboard Arinder's Blade, Elias and Virae found themselves alone on the observation deck. The ship drifted silently through space, surrounded by countless stars glittering like diamonds against the endless void. They sat side by side, neither speaking for a long moment, simply taking in the beauty of the cosmos. "You've done remarkable things," Virae said finally, breaking the silence. "I never thought I'd see the day when humans and Zari could stand together as equals." "It wasn't me," Elias replied modestly. "It was all of us, working together, believing in something bigger than ourselves." Virae smiled faintly, her glowing eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. "Perhaps, but you were the spark that ignited the flame. Without your courage, none of this would have been possible." Elias chuckled softly. "Courage, or stubbornness?" "Both," Virae said with a hint of amusement. Then her expression grew serious. "What will you do now? Return to Earth? Resume your role as a diplomat?" Elias hesitated, considering the question. He had accomplished what he set out to do, but leaving felt bittersweet. The bonds he'd formed here, the trust he'd built, meant more to him than he cared to admit. Still, his place was among his own people, for now. "I'll go back," he said eventually. "There's still work to be done, bridges to strengthen. But this isn't goodbye. We're connected now, whether we like it or not." Virae nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "And what about you?" Elias asked gently. "Will your people accept the changes you've made?" "They'll have no choice," Virae replied firmly. "Change is inevitable. Those who refuse to adapt will fade away, just as the calth will if they continue down their path of destruction." Her confidence reassured Elias, though he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Reforms often came at a cost, and Virae would bear much of that burden. Yet he believed in her strength, just as she believed in his resolve. As their time together drew to a close, Virae presented Elias with a parting gift, a ceremonial dagger crafted from crystalline metal native to her homeworld. Its blade shimmered with iridescent hues, catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. "This belongs to my family," she explained, placing it carefully in his hands. "It represents our bond, a reminder that true courage lies not in fearlessness, but in choosing to act despite fear." Elias accepted the gift with gratitude, his fingers brushing hers briefly. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I'll treasure it always." Moments later, The shuttle carrying Elias departed Erinder's blade, heading toward Earth. From the viewport, Virae watched until it disappeared into the stars. Though sadness lingered, she felt a sense of pride knowing that their partnership had laid the foundation for lasting peace. Years passed, and the legacy of Elias Kane and Princess Virae endured. The Galactic Accord became a beacon of hope for other species seeking alliances across the galaxy. Humanity and the Zari Dominion thrived, their collaboration inspiring stories of unity told for generations. Yet the universe remained vast and unpredictable. New challenges arose, testing the resolve of those who dared to dream of harmony. But whenever doubt crept in, the tale of the human diplomat and the alien princess served as a reminder. Courage, compassion, and cooperation could overcome even the greatest odds. And somewhere, in the quiet expanse of space, the faint echo of Virae's words lingered. This begins now. For Elias and Virae, it had been only the start of something extraordinary, a legacy written not in stone, but in the hearts of those who dared to believe in a better tomorrow.